All right, traders, welcome to today's end of day recap. This is Christian from Stravica Trade Group, and it is Thursday, July 28th. This will be a little bit shorter of a recap today because I have to get on the road. I'm going up to Saratoga, and we'll be out half the day tomorrow. We'll be in for tomorrow's. I want to see what the PCE deflator number is tomorrow, right? That's the big inflation report that the Fed watches. That will be tomorrow morning at 8:30. Here is what that looks like for expectations. For tomorrow, the PCE deflator 0.9, and the year number will be 6.8%. So, we'll see if inflation starts to tick down. We have not seen that really yet from some of the other reports, such as the CPI report. So, remember, the last report came out a couple weeks ago. That will be tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning. All right, so let's get to some of these movers after hours. Pretty crazy in terms of all the data this week coming out, and a lot of it so far, and the week is not over. But the events of the Fed and many of the many, not all, of course, of the earnings reactions to earnings reports have been pretty darn good. I think it overall just kind of tells you, once again, I'm repeating myself a little bit from yesterday and the day before and the day before that, but it just tells you where sentiment is at, where positioning is at. Right. We talked about this too last week, talking about some, younger traders, inexperienced traders will just look at the raw numbers, right, and think, oh, earnings go up, the stock must go up. Earnings go down, the stock must go down, right? That is in the very beginning, I think, of how you learn to, interpret some of the data. But a lot of it has to do with what the expectations are. Where has the stock price traveled over the last year? If the stock is down 30, 40%, is bad news already priced in to a bad quarter, right? So it's much more complex than obviously what let me look at the headline number and see if it's plus or minus. It doesn't necessarily work that way. Most of the time it doesn't, right? It really depends, and vice versa. If the stock's up 50% for the year, right, do you think it's going to have much better than expected earnings? Or do you think, so it's a completely different set of circumstances that we're dealing with this year. And it's very different, right? So I think that's also why I see many traders kind of puzzled by some of the results that are coming out. Because again, I'll say it again, it depends what the positioning is, depends what the path of the stock is, and it depends on the overall psychology sentiment, right? So it's much more complicated than whether the raw numbers that come out. All right, so that said, let's get to some of those results, as well as let me talk about the indices. I'll talk about a couple things and how I traded this market for the day. But pretty big follow-through move. Q's up 1% for the day after they were up huge yesterday. SPY up 1.25. IWM, which continues to kind of just move up and get less attention about it, up another 1.3%. The VIX, just wanted to bring up a chart of what the VIX has been doing, right? You haven't really heard too much about the VIX lately, but it is on the lower end, right? It's all the way down to 22. Has not gone below 20, not where it was a few months ago. So still a little bit heightened, I guess you can kind of say. Looking at where we are now, we've now extended pretty decently above the value area. We are almost back to this consolidation that we saw back towards the end of May, beginning of June. You could see that we're coming upon, so you're going to hear me talk a lot about these, and I have been talking a lot about the virgin point of controls, right? There's just an area where there's a lot of volume has previously been where we haven't returned. So again, a lot of these act like overhead resistance or overhead overhead supply is the right way to phrase it. So let me correct myself, and that's sometimes where we see digestion, right? So that's where we are here in S&P. NASDAQ, I'll just bring you through this really quickly. Note we got stuffed there at the end of the day, top of value, but we are continuing to trend higher in the after hours market. Nice move here. Let's look at a couple of the big names that reported after the close. Amazon, we got up to We did take out this version point of control. We're sitting here a little bit higher at 137. Note, there's more of these up here. This is going to, remember this number, 137. Where this gets particularly interesting is right in this area, right? I don't know exactly what to do with this name, which is, I'm completely honest, of course, on these videos, but I don't know what you do with this name in here. So if you were long for earnings, congratulations, but now you're going to be pushing into this area. So I don't know if it gets any easier for Amazon, because the trend is still down, and so far it was so far below, that now you're kind of creeping back up to this extension from the value area. So we'll move on, because I just don't have a lot to say. I think it's a very challenging chart. Amazon, good to see that they did a lot of cost reductions. And then we move on to the next one, which is Apple, right? And, again, not as bad as what everybody was thinking. We've heard a lot about the demand for iPhone sales being down, right? There was a report that was sent out just this morning from Bloomberg. I retweeted it, talking about Samsung seeing reduced demand. So they did come out. I think a lot of their metrics missed. Their service number was pretty strong. But, again, you look at how much cash this company has at hand, they're going to be fine. So they're up to 162. Again, still, I think, a very challenging chart, but the results just not as bad as what was feared. Okay. And then you have Roku. Right. Interesting. What does this chart tell you? And listen, I didn't have a trade on in any one of these companies, but I'm just observing. One of the things very interesting about Roku, right? First of all, it did stop going down, right, in the last over the last couple months, right? But the other thing to note is, okay, it stopped going down. It didn't make a new low, but it really didn't show any relative strength either, right? Many growth names have been turning back up and starting to climb higher. This one was not one of them. Still below the 50, the 20, the 5-period moving average. Why is that important? I don't know. It kind of backs up my system because I don't touch names that are showing relative weakness, right? I've been participating in names that have kind of, begin to trend back higher and get out of that stage one and begin, possible stage two, right? But this is not one of those names. So that, somewhat okay that it didn't take out the lows, until we got to earnings, but that's, the price below the 5, the 20, the 50, that is relative weakness, right? And there's a big difference, and we go over this all the time about, names that just because they're down doesn't mean they're a good buy. I heard someone say this on CNBC just the other day that, they asked, it doesn't even matter what stock it was. They're like, why do you like the stock? Well, it's cheap. That's not a reason to buy the stock, in my opinion. Again, everything I'm going through is for information purposes only. I give my opinions to you. I give it straight up. No BS in these videos, but I'm not giving out any advice either. All right. So that's the story there. And of course, it does look a bit obvious after hours. Where is the stock going to go down to? Well, I talk about, those version point of controls. I don't see one here. I don't see one lower until we get to, on the daily chart, $48, I think. So that could be where this goes. But still, do I want to buy that? No, I don't think it could go down a couple dollars. I still really don't understand the business, to be honest. Which brings me to like another example. Remember this stock again? So I'll get off the negative kick here in just a second. But remember, this stock hit $62 last year, right? $62. Where is it now? $2? You think it's a good buy now at $2, right? So these stocks, some of them, and we've talked about this, just kind of rehashing some of the older concepts, but there was many stocks that did not make it out of the 1999, 2000 time. Fubu may be one of those stocks that don't make it, right? But who knows? It could come back as well. But I'm just saying, $2, it could go down to $1. I'm not buying it at $1 either. So in any event, let me move on and talk about some other concepts. Some other names that reported here. Here's my movers list. So yes, you've got Amazon right now up 12%. The a couple of the names that are also interesting are some of the chemical names. You know, these names were really strong earlier in the year and then kind of really fell apart once you got to June, right? Well, they're starting to claw back a little bit, right? And CC has a nice earnings report. Right? Another one that I was trading for a while and stopped trading because of the what it looked like was OLN too. Looks like this one's up, so that'll be one to kind of watch for tomorrow. Let's just see what else is on the list, see if anything else. Looks like a firm is up decently. I don't know if that had earnings yet. I didn't see that. All right, so moving on, let me talk about a few other concepts here. And what I traded today, you know, the day didn't start off the best. And I think it just kind of shows you to kind of be patient with this market a little bit. You know, we did come in pretty hot to the open, came in and sold off a little bit, and then just basically grinded higher for the session. So here's how I traded today. You know, I've been long LNTH. I took another target there. I did not take a target in Celsius, which I've been long, hit 87. I've taken like 3 or 4 targets. I reloaded on the name back in here. I took a target yesterday. I didn't take one today just because I'm running out of bullets and the name, but very, very strong looking, as well as many of the other names in this group. And, you know, my theory is, you know, I got long Monster Beverage yesterday. I took one target in that name, but my theory is hot weather. You want cold beverages. I don't know. Seems very simple, doesn't it? Sometimes simple helps in trading. Pepsi was another name that I traded today too. You know, I just saw some strength in some of the lower volatility names in the beginning of the day, and this one worked for me. So I was able to take two targets. Again, not very high volatility in something like this. Yeah, you know, I made a couple bucks in it, right? I day traded a little bit of XBI. I bought the dip, but really the better outperformance for the day was in the healthcare names, I believe. Let's see, where did this finish? It actually finished okay. Still interesting here in the biotechs. They've been going sideways. I'm still very interested to see which way that this is going to turn out here. I still think that 88 or 87.94 VPOC gets taken out, which is an upside target. But again, it just hasn't really been, the last 2 weeks haven't really been where most of the momentum, you know, in this group has been. Right? Did I say that right? There hasn't been momentum in the majority of biotech the last couple of weeks after, you know, showing some really nice performance. But there definitely has been some notables. This TMDX has been absolutely on fire, moving higher. All right. Other names, you know, I noticed how strong this name was after earnings. This is the NASDAQ, so an exchange stock. I was either going to have an earnings trade on or, you know, go after this name on, you know, if it triggered, right? And this is part of, you know, I try to talk a lot about this in the Tribeca Trade Group trading room, where you can kind of help yourself, you know, be scalable, right? And not watch every chart, you know, putting alerts on names. So I had an alert on this name once I saw the results from the NASDAQ exchange stock. And I had my alert, you know, right around $99. And I got into this as soon as it broke for the day. So here is my entry price at 99. And I was able to take a couple targets in this today too. All right, and still long this name, and my plan is to hold maybe a little bit into earnings, because I think that they could have similar earnings in as NASDAQ did. But we'll see. If it continues to go up, I don't have to do much. A few other names that are kind of looking pretty interesting too, in you know, not necessarily like the big bank names, but something like a Schwab, right? They announced a big buyback plan. They jump over the value area today, and you know, could begin to maybe trend a little bit into the lower 70s. You know, really, really strong today. There's a VPOC up there at 70.32. Right? Another name that I got long earlier in the week in the TTG trend portfolio was MSCI. I've traded this name before, and I've just been waiting for this name to kind of come around. and get back above the 50-day moving average and get back above its value area. So I'm looking for this thing to get to about 493. Right, this is the MSCI makes licensing fees off of the ETF fund managers. So BlackRock, State Street, right? They manage the underlying indices, and they generate fees off of managing the underlying indices. ELF was the name, right? We heard about L'Oreal had good numbers, right? And I like this chart. Kind of came into a little bit of support. Not a big mover today, but still, and I did force a target at the end of the day. Monster. So that's basically it for me for trading for the day. Again, I'm still very kind of controlled into this, in my trading account. As we get to the end of the month, as I said in yesterday's video, I haven't been looking for home runs. I do really like what we're seeing in terms of the price action. We're seeing just a lot more setups come in, right? And they're in various different areas too. Just like what we saw in Roku, you still kind of have to, trade very disciplined, right? And notice things like relative strength, relative weakness. PWR made a really nice move today. The utilities were very strong today, right? So again, there's and the move in interest rates is generating that a little bit. But where was XLU for the day? Yeah, so I have it highlighted right here. It's up 3.6% for the day. The utilities, very strong. Clean energy stocks were, of course, the strongest. Solar, just absolutely amazing. I came into today and I'm like, well, I don't know what you do with this group because they're all up so much pre-market. Now I'm long ENPH in the TTG trend portfolio, but that's it. That's my only exposure right now to that group, and I just didn't think it was right to go after some of these names that were up. I think the TAN ETF was up in the first 5 minutes of the day, up about 9%. So it came back in. It was only up about 5.5% at one point, but still closed the day up about 7.5%. But if you bought it on the open, you have a losing trade. So again, have to be very strategic in this market. Other areas that rallied over the session, the REITs. Right, blockchain stocks in there. So again, a hodgepodge of different areas of the market. Some defensive, some a little bit more aggressive. Consumer staples also rallied 1.5% over the session. That was actually better than what the internet group did for the day. All right, and then some of your underperformers. Gold miners gave back early gains. They sold off 1%. And you can see biotech was on the worst, so exhibiting relative weakness for the day. Still recovered from the lows, but still down 1% for the session. All right. Do I have any other names? I think, like I said, I wanted to keep the video a little bit short. So we'll do just that for now. Many more names to go over, as we will be digesting all of these earnings reports. Congratulations on getting through a very, very big week. Again, not done yet. You still have the inflation numbers tomorrow. So we'll see how that pans out. But overall, I think things have improved decently, and we're seeing that, and like I said, in the participation, and I thought we would at some point catch some momentum the second half of the year, and we still have. We're not even into August yet, so we've got a lot of ways to go, a lot of trading yet to do this year. I'm super excited. I had a decent July trading, and I'm very motivated to get going again in August. So guys, have a great weekend, and I'll see you back for tomorrow morning, and then off for the rest of the day.